Trump's tax reform rings alarm bells for foreign investment in Mexico. The world's sugar market anxiously awaits the outcome of OPEC oil production cuts this week, and fuel price deregulation could mean lower pump prices in Mexico. Hello and welcome to today's edition of Mexico News Network's Breaking News Business. I'm Elliot Bullman. Let's start with today's information. With 51 votes in favor and 49 against, the US Senate approved in the early hours of Saturday the biggest tax reform in 30 years. One of Donald Trump's main proposals in the campaign is about to become a reality. Among Trump's plans to improve its tax appeal to investors is to reduce corporate tax from 35% to 20%. The approval of this change would generate a problem for Mexico, where the rate of ISR is 30%, and would therefore make the United States more attractive than Mexico for investment. Another of the most controversial proposals in the fiscal plan consists in the creation of a tax of up to 12% on the offshore profits accumulated by North American entities. With this measure, Trump seeks to retain production of output of multinationals such as Ford in the US. On income tax, early analysis shows reform would benefit the wealthiest Americans by slashing the top tax rate, while increasing the rate on the lowest income taxpayers. The plan has come under fire from economists and political analysts for failing to include any details on how the cost of the new tax cuts and changes will be paid for, and for vagaries on the new income levels that will fall into the revised tax brackets. The costs of implementing the scheme are estimated to tally well into the multiple trillion-dollar range. If the United States improves its tax conditions to investors and becomes more attractive, it could trigger an investment war that would force countries to adapt their offers to stay competitive. The question now is, what will be Mexico's counter-strategy? In other news, energy ministers meet in Vienna this week to discuss cuts to oil production. The world's sugar industry will monitor the outcome closely. That's because energy costs will be a key factor for sugar prices in the coming months, since they determine the attractiveness of ethanol, a biofuel based on sugarcane. High gas prices can lead cane mills in Brazil, the main producer of sugar, to produce more ethanol than the sweetener. Signs that more Brazilian cane is being diverted to make the biofuel have helped raise prices of unrefined sugar futures in recent weeks. In any case, the sweetener continues to be the worst performing raw material this year due to expectations of increased supply, in part because the European Union ruled out production cuts. Brazil's plants are expected to process 56% of the cane in ethanol when a new harvest begins in the central south-southern region in April, an increase of 3 percentage points over the previous season. Crude sugar futures have risen 3.2% in New York this month, while crude has advanced 6.4%. The price of oil will be more important for the sugar industry in April, when the center-south harvest begins in Brazil and decisions are made about what to do with the cane. In related news, gasoline and diesel prices are no longer subject to governmental control anywhere in Mexico, following the conclusion of a process to liberalize the domestic fuel market. On November the 30th, fuel prices became fully deregulated and the publication of government-set prices ended. Large oil companies and other players in the fuel market have welcomed the news to further ease government control, and United States-based suppliers are eager to take advantage of the relaxed trading conditions. Since April, Chevron, Exxon, Shell and BP's new retail gas stations have proliferated in a market previously only open to Pemex. Now that fuel prices will be further exposed to market forces, companies are expected to ramp up supply. Trucks and trains are already transporting fuel at frequent intervals from Texas refineries to the United States-Mexico border and onward to distribution terminals in Mexico. Coupled with an energy reform that allows private companies to participate at every stage of the supply chain, the end of state controls mean that more and more foreign companies are planning to invest in port terminals, storage facilities, and other infrastructure that will allow them to better compete with Pemex. Nevertheless, Pemex will maintain an advantage over new competitors in terms of infrastructure, at least for the time being, although it faces significant problems of its own, such as the loss of billions of pesos in revenues due to pipeline theft that continues to rise despite efforts to combat it. And finally, let's turn to the markets. The Mexican peso increased 0.17% to 18.63 from 18.60 in the previous trading session. Meanwhile, the IPC Mexico decreased 0.22% to 47,161 from 47,265 in the previous trading session. This was all for today. Thank you for staying with us. I'm your host, Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and log on to MexicoNewsNetwork.com for more information on Mexico and the world. Until next time.